Welcome back to Bottom Deck Achievements, a Hearthstone achievement hunting series. First off, my apologies for the mess behind me. We're moving to a new house in a couple weeks, and naturally we're starting the process of packing everything up, so it's going to be a little messy around, so just bear with me with that for a little bit. But we have the new mini set out. The Wailing Caverns released as of this recording yesterday. It's been out for a day. I've been real busy with work, so I haven't really been able to dig in, but I did want to do a quick overview of the achievements that were added with this set. They added a total of 3,600 experience to claim before any experience bonuses from the rewards track, one achievement for each class, and two neutral ones. And I'm going to go through all of those that have been added, but first of all, I have a bunch of old ones that I need to claim. So this one, while not tied to the Forged in the Barrens set, and not one that's going to give me any experience points, it's one that I'm pretty proud of and wanted to highlight. I got the win 12 ranked games in a row achievement. On the last day of May, I was grinding and grinding to get up as high as I could in Wild, and slammed a bunch of Murloc Shaman games, and actually won one past this. I won 13 in a row, actually, with that to climb up to Diamond 5. Really solid deck before that set came out. We'll talk about Wild when we talk about the cards, but I wanted to claim this one because I'm pretty proud of it. And into the Forged in the Barrens achievements, I have a grand total of 6 I need to claim. I did this one for Rogue, both levels of it. I know with Rogue you can play a lot of cards in one turn with the current Miracle list, but I just took the easy way out and built a deck with nothing but zero cost minions, stuff that bounces them back to your hand, zero cost spells, Secret Passage, all that kind of stuff, and just threw out 12 cards in one turn after I hit Diamond 5, so I wasn't in danger of losing any real progress on my climb. Just got it done real easy, real quick. Moving on, I completed the achievement that I covered last time, I think, where I hopped into duels to nature spell stuff with Shaman. And just like I predicted, it only took me one more duels run in order to finish this one. So I think it took me a total of 3 total runs in duels to do this one. But I did really high roll one of those that I recorded. But, you know, not too bad to get it done if you just focus on it there. And then finally, I have a bunch of neutral ones that I did in duels. I did the first level of the Watch Posts achievement. I know I probably could have done this one a lot easier at the beginning of the set when the Watch Post decks were really good. But you know what? They're okay in duels as well. And then finally, I know I've been talking about these two for a long time, especially this one. One of the first episodes I did was Death Rattle Demon Hunter. I finally did it. Finally summoned 50 of these demon spawn with that terrible 5-drop 1/1. I was so happy to take this guy out of my Death Rattle Demon Hunter deck, especially with some of the cards we'll talk about later. This one is finally done, and I don't have to run this guy anymore. And speaking of cards that I don't have to run anymore, I know I've talked about this one in several videos, but I've finally summoned 50 hogs with Hog Rancher. This was, I think, just my go-to bad card that you have to grind a lot with in order just to get some achievement points, and it's finally done. I don't have to do it anymore. Feels good. Anyway, with all that being done, let's head on over to the Barrens, or rather, the Wailing Caverns. The new mini set came out. You can purchase it once again for 2,000 gold, or I think $15 American. I think it's worth it. We'll talk about some of the cards, but I ended up not purchasing the Dark Moon Races one. Mainly because I wasn't really impressed by the legendary cards. I figured in that set, I had actually saved up all the packs I had gotten from the rewards track and from month-end stuff, just so I could open them all in case I really didn't want to buy the set. And it turns out I didn't really think any of the legendaries looked that great to me, so I just opened all my packs and got all the commons and the rares, and actually one copy of the epic as well from that. So this time around, though, I liked some of the legendary cards. I think the parameters I set was if at least 2 of them looked playable, then I would go for it and buy it, and there's at least 2 that I like, and Another one that I kind of like and think has a potential to be pretty good. So I thought it was an easy buy. I spent the 2,000 gold on it immediately. And let's talk about some of these cards and the achievements that came with them. So first up in this alphabetical journey of ours through the classes is the Demon Hunter. And just like the devs had hinted at, we did receive one more sigil to go along with the Play 200 Sigils achievement, which I'm really thankful for. This sigil at 2 costs, summoning 2/2/2s with Taunt, seems okay. It seems better than some of the other sigils I wanted to play. I never really found myself when I was playing the Death Rattle deck to really have an opportunity where I felt like I wanted to play Sigil of Flame. Sigil of Silence came in handy a couple times, but Sigil of Flame I never really felt like I wanted to play it. I just wanted to like throw minions onto the board. But this one sounds like something that, you know, at least doesn't kill my own board. 4/4 worth of stats for 2, but delayed a turn, and I guess delayed another turn for them to actually attack is not the worst thing in the world. I did take out a couple cards, a couple of the other copies of the sigils to put in 2 copies of this one, because I think I'd actually be willing to play these in an actual game, so that's good. And speaking of the Death Rattle deck, Fel Rattler is an incredible addition to that deck. 3 cost 3/2 with Rush, and Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. It's pretty much perfectly made for that deck. Really good synergy with some of the other stuff they got, and just like pretty much an auto include. Like I said, I was running some inefficient cards, and I immediately just took those out and slotted in Fel Rattler, and it's been pretty good in the couple games I've played with it so far. And then finally, we got one more minion, an 8 cost 8/8 with Taunt, basically Ironbark Protector with a bit of an upside, in that your opponent's spells cost 2 more as long as this is alive. And the achievement to go along with this, force your opponent to spend 45 extra mana with Taint Heart Tormentor. I think stage 1 of this achievement is 15 extra mana. Overall, I don't think 45 mana is too difficult to do. But this seems like a card that is kind of difficult to just throw down. At the very best, I think you'd really just get 2 extra mana spent in your opponent using 1 removal spell on this, and then the rest of their stuff is fine. So you're looking at playing 20 plus games with this, I think, because I think on average your opponents are not gonna worry too much about this, especially this coming down on turn 8. What's 2 extra mana to remove a big 8/8 threat? So I'll play around with this one a little bit and see how it feels. It's not the most egregious thing in the world. It's not going to be the worst grind, because at the very worst, if your opponent can't deal with it, you threw down an 8/8. Even though Demon Hunter has another 8/8 that's really, really good right now. Up next, we got Druid. I'm going to go ahead and start by talking about their achievement. Play Druid Beasts. Druid beasts, mind you, not just any old beasts that are actual Druid cards, for 100 less mana than their normal cost. Now, we did get one tool to go along with this, the 3 cost 4/3 Fangbound Druid, that reduces a cost of a beast in your hand by 2 when it dies. But we also, in the main Baron set, got their ranked spell. I think it's called something Seed. Yeah, here we go. Living Seed. Unfortunately, in the collection, it doesn't tell me what the levels 2 and 3 are of this, but I'm willing to bet that it's 2 and then 3. So this can help you with that achievement as well, to make your beast cost less. So this one's kind of annoying just because it has to be the Druid beasts, and 100 is actually a lot of mana. You're looking at playing this card and the ranked spell a bunch of times in order to get this. But like I said, at least it's not just a single card that you're having to grind out games with. You do have, 2 cards that you can put 2 copies each of in there. And then additionally, Druid got stuff that deals with nature spells. We got Lady Anacondra as one of the legendaries. This is the one I think has the opportunity to be pretty good. It's just a blanket, your nature spells cost 2 less. People have already been talking about running this with the card Celestial Alignment. Plopping her down, and then all your nature spells will essentially cost 0, and you can pop off and do some crazy stuff with that. But another one of the payoff cards is Deviate Dreadfang, a beast that you might want to lower the cost of with some of these other cards, which is after you cast a nature spell, summon a 4/2 beast with Rush. This card reminds me of, what is it, Exotic Mount Seller, that every time you played a spell it would summon a random beast. But this is if the random beast was just all the time a 4-2 with Rush. So that feels better. Yes, with Mount Seller you could high roll into a King Crush or something like that, but you could also just get some 1/1s that did nothing. So I think this is better. It's just that is a really expensive card. It's a card that's begging for the cost to be reduced on it. So we'll see if the two can play with each other in that regard. It's hard to say. It's hard to evaluate without actually playing with it. But Druids tend to want to just do the tokeny thing a little more these days. So running a big beast in your deck is probably not the thing you're wanting to do the most. But if you're grinding for the achievement, why not this one? Moving on now to Hunter. They got a couple interesting things. First, I want to talk about the Sindori Scent Finder, which has Frenzy, summon 4 1/1 hyenas with Rush, and I'm not 100% sure. I think these would be the same hyenas that would count towards their other achievement from this set, which is summon 6 of them in one turn. I think they intended for you to do that with the Kolkar Pack Runner, which summons a hyena every time you play a spell while it's alive. I think the achievement is to summon 6 in one turn. But that's an epic card, and this one is a common. So if they do count towards this achievement, this could be a budget way to get that one done. It's an achievement I haven't done yet, so it's one I'm interested to look at to see if this can be done on a budget. You would need both copies and some cheap spells in order to ping them down, but it might be doable. And then the other theme that Hunter got was kind of a poison package. They got a terrible looking weapon in a 4 mana 1/2 poisonous weapon, which I think is absolute trash. I don't think it ever sees play. But the spell Serpent Bloom looks like it actually might. For 0 mana, as long as you have a beast on the board, you can turn it into a remove anything. Well, as long as it doesn't have Divine Shield. That's pretty good. That's like a 0 mana kill a thing, and Hunter has a lot of fast, cheap beasts. So I think this could be good. And this does go into their new achievement that was added. Destroy 60 minions with poisonous beasts and weapons. Now I will mention that the Scorpid, Venomous Scorpid I think it's called, the 3 mana 1/3 that discovers a spell as a battle cry, is a beast. So that counts towards this. I was grinding for that achievement in duels as well. I think it's 25 to get that one, just with Venomous Scorpid, and Venomous Scorpid has proven to be quite a good card. So you can really get this in any class. I was playing Paladin at the time when I got these 6 ticks. So this achievement doesn't seem too bad at all. I'm already a 10th of the way there, and I've not even really tried for it. So that's exciting that one of these can just be straight up done. Moving on now to the Mage. Most of the other classes got 3 cards that, maybe had 2 cards that played with each other in one way, and then the third card kind of went in a different direction. But these 3 really interlock with each other in Mage as sort of a freeze package. Now, we've seen in the Baron's base set them get some freezing synergy with Varden Dawngrasp, I think the name is, of their Mercenary Legendary card, which I think freezes all enemy minions and destroys any that are frozen. Here we got 3 cards that play around with things being frozen. The first being Frostweave Dungeoneer, a 3 mana 2/3, which is part of a little cycle they have going on of a 3 mana 2/3 that draws you a card, or draws you a spell rather, and if it's a certain type of spell different for each class, you get some kind of a bonus effect. This one summons 2 1/1 elementals that freeze, which go along with their added achievement, freeze 75 characters with elementals. Now you can do this with just good old water elemental. I believe we do have, I forget the name of the card, but it's a new secret that was added that summons a water elemental when one of your minions is attacked. Unfortunately, Mage is not really playing too many minions these days. Unfortunately, I don't think any of these cards are going to be good enough to make like a full-on freeze package for Mage in Standard. But it's a start. I really like this 6 mana 5/5 because it reminds me of Cabal Crystal Runner. But rather than being cheaper for every secret you've played this game, it costs less for each frozen enemy. Now, this isn't just minions, it's your opponent's face as well. So you could get yourself a cheap 5/5 with, different parameters than the other one. But Cabal Crystal Runner was pretty good. So I just, as a design standpoint, I like this one because it's an homage to another card that I like and is good. Unfortunately, it might be a little difficult to, get some stuff frozen. But hey, if you could freeze at least just one thing and discount this to 4, it's a 4-mana 5/5, which is pretty good. And then additionally, we have Shattering Blast, which is just the second half of Varden Dawngrasp's Battle Cry, which is just destroy all frozen minions. Now, historically, cards like this are really bad. Like cards like Shatter, they're cards that are just like miserably pathetic. Adding like 1 or 2 extra mana just to destroy all frozen minions, I don't think is enough of an upside to make this like runnable. Like if you think of old school control decks that would run Frost Nova Doomsayer, Doomsayer was a card you could just put down on a board without the Frost Nova and still get use of it. This, without a card like Frost Nova, has 0 uses. So I think it's significantly worse, and I don't really think it's a good card, and probably don't see myself ever putting it in a deck, unfortunately. Even if it does give a little more support to the other Mage achievement that was in this set of destroying frozen minions. I got that one a long time ago, by other means. I didn't need this card to do that achievement, and that was like one of the first ones I ended up popping in this set. So take that for what you will. Next up, Paladin I guess this is the first time we're going to talk about the Adventurers mechanic. We'll get into that probably the third one, but we'll talk about the secret and the weapon first. The weapon is trash. It's a 3-mana 2/3 weapon, which already isn't great stats, and it's a death rattle, give your minions Divine Shield. I don't really think it's a good enough upside, but Paladin's fine. Paladin just got 2 cards nerfed, and they're still fine, I think. And then they got another secret, which is just sort of the Shrink Ray effect, but when a minion attacks. It can be played around pretty easily. I don't think it's really that impactful, all that great. But Party Up is a card I would like to talk about. The Adventurers is a theme in this set. I don't remember what all class cards do Adventurers stuff. I know Warlock has one, and I don't quite remember if any other classes actually do, but I know there's 1 or 2 neutrals that play around with this. But Adventurers is one of the key mechanics of the Wailing Caverns set. They are 2/2 minions that have a random effect. Rush, Divine Shield, Taunt, Lifesteal, Spell Damage +1, maybe Stealth, and 2 others. I think there's 8 in total. Party Up is just a 7-cost spell that summons 5 of them. Now, this achievement seems really annoying. Summon 4 of the exact same adventurer with Party Up. I'm assuming that it's off of a single Party Up and not over just multiple Party Ups, because if it's multiple Party Ups, it's like the easiest thing ever. Just play this card like 3 times and you'll get it. But when you're summoning 5 and there's 8 to pick from, getting 4 of the same one seems really difficult. Mine is showing that I have 1 of 4 because I did discover this once in duels right after the set went live, and I played it once and I didn't get any copies, so I know that's probably harder to do than getting a single pair, but getting 4 of the same one seems rather difficult. I'm excited to dig into this one to see just how many casts of this spell it'll take. But as far as the spell itself, I don't think it's super good. You can compare it to things like there's an old 8-mana Druid spell that summoned like 5 2/2 treants, but it had Twin Spell on it, which means you got to cast it again another turn. I'd almost rather have that one because I get to do it twice. But when you compare to other effects like this is not a terrible deal. It's essentially a 7-mana 8/8, but split over... Oh no, it's a 7-mana 10/10, but split over 5 bodies. So easily removed by AoE. But... and aside from just rolling a couple with Rush, it's a 7-mana, like, just hope your opponent doesn't kill you the next turn. Remains to be seen how good it's actually going to be. I think with all the power that Paladin has in its corner at this moment, I don't think Party Up ever really sees real play aside from just achievement farming, which is unfortunate because I think this adventure mechanic is pretty cool. I just don't think it's going to be incredibly great. Moving on to Priest, who probably got one of the hardest to evaluate weirdest spells I've ever seen in Hearthstone in Against All Odds, which goes along with the achievement that was added for Priest. I believe the first step of this achievement is to kill 10 minions with this card, and step 2 is to kill 10, so you're going to have to kill a few of your own minions as well. Boy, Priest still can't kill 4 attack minions, huh? This one's really, really weird, really hard to evaluate, because you have to do the mental math in your head of like 50% of minions that have like, you know, 1, 3, 5, whatever attack. I always want to say cost. Or like 2 and 4 or 0. I guess there's not too many 0 attack minions. But man, this is rough. I think, especially in Wild, Priest has just a ton better board clears. Even in Standard, like something like Soul Mirror is like most of the time going to be a lot better than this. I love how weird it is, and I love that it's the one epic of this little mini set, but I don't think it's really good. I'm really interested to see how rough this achievement's going to be, because it's one of those things that I could just get lucky and do it in one game, or it could take me 20. Who knows? So that's kind of exciting. We got another Dungeoneer with Paladin. This time, if you draw a holy spell with it, you reduce the cost of that spell. So kind of one of the things Paladin's been wanting to do in the last couple sets is to reduce the cost of stuff in your hand, and this fits in with that. Unfortunately, Priest has a lot of shadow spells that they like these days, something like Raise Dead, or I think there's one of the lifesteal ones that's seen some play that just does 4 single pings of lifesteal damage. Sees play sometimes. Something like Palm Reading I don't think is a holy spell, and that's run in like every Priest deck. So there's a lot of really good Priest cards that you want to run in your deck, but is going to make this Devout Dungeoneer worse. And the upside of reducing its cost by 2, there's other stuff that does that. Like just a single Palm Reading can hit multiple spells in your hand by 1 each. So most of the time, I think you're not going to want to run this because there's just better options. Cleric of Anshe? The Cleric card seems pretty okay. If you can just heal yourself from either Renew or just your hero power, you essentially pick one of 3 cards of your deck to draw. There is a shadow spell that does this. It's not Shadow Visions, but it's the worst Shadow Visions. Shadow Visions is just so good. You discover a copy of a spell from your deck. This one was one created for the core set. It is a shadow spell, so maybe if you are trying to just run more holy spells, because you want to run your Dungeoneer card, maybe you run this Cleric of Anshe to be able to draw a spell without having to run like a shadow spell to do it. So maybe it's card draw and Priest, so that's always a good thing. Next up is Rogue, who got 1 absolute piece of garbage and 2 kind of interesting ones. The absolute piece of garbage is Water Moccasin. Aside from having stealth, I don't really even know what you're doing here. Rogue loves to flood the board with cheap stuff, so this is hardly ever going to be your only minion on board. So the poisonous aspect of this is never really going to come into play. 2 attack on a 3-cost minion is not great. I don't know. I think Water Moccasin is just straight up trash, so I'm going to stop talking about it. I really like Shroud of Concealment. I know Rogue has so many other better draw options, but man, Shroud of Concealment is a cool card. Draw 2 minions, and any that you play that turn gain stealth for that turn. Really, really neat. It tutors for minions, which is always something worth looking at, and that stealth for 1 turn could be cool. You can conceal Edwin in Wild again, if you really want to. Unfortunately, I think just with the plethora of draw options they have, like, I think I would rather run cards like Secret Passage or, what is it? It's one that if you combo, you draw both a minion and a spell. I think that one's better just because it costs 2, even though you have to combo it. It's just more flexible and easy to pull off. I will say, though, that there is an achievement that goes with this one. It is give 30 minions stealth with Shroud of Concealment, so that doesn't seem too difficult to pull off, especially with all the cheap minions that Rogue likes to run. If you play this on turn like 5 or 6, you're more than likely to be able to play both of them, which means you won't have to jam too many games with this card in order to pull off this achievement. So the interesting card, not great, but interesting card that Rogue got is Savory Deviant Delight, which is apparently a nod to a recipe or a food item in WoW from this area, which apparently people who have all played WoW said how awesome it is that the flavor of this card no pun intended, it being savory. Um, the obvious comparison here is to Demonic Project from the Boomsday set, which was a Warlock spell that transformed a random minion in both yours and your opponent's hand to a random demon. This one does the same thing, but it becomes either a pirate or a stealth minion, or potentially a stealth pirate, if there are any. There probably are, right? Maybe. That card really never saw any play, and yes, people always say, oh, a card like this is so good for breaking up combos or doing things like that. Well, number one, there's a better card in this set for breaking up combos, and number two, people said the same thing with Demonic Project, and that card saw like zero play. So, unfortunately, I don't think this one will either, but hey, any disruption stuff I'm glad to have in the game. Gonna try to pick up the pace here because this video is going quite long, but next up is Shaman. I'll start by talking about their card and achievement duo. It is Perpetual Flame, a 1-cost spell that deals 3 damage to a random enemy minion, and then if that kills it, it repeats it, does another 3 damage to another enemy minion, but it will overload you for 1 every time. Unfortunately, it's not a nature spell, so you won't get to work on their other spell damage achievement with that, but the achievement for here is to destroy 75 minions with it. Now, against like a token druid or something, this is essentially a 1-mana board clear. Unfortunately, like I said, it's going to overload you a lot. I'm a little mixed on it because I think it's a really, really cool concept. I just hate the fact that it can just like ruin your next turn for you, leaving your opponent to rebuild. So that's a little unfortunate, but it's an interesting design. We've seen cards like this do okay. I think the Lurker Below, I don't remember if it started at either the right or the left and then worked its way, or if you picked a minion and then it like chose. But Lurker Below, after it got, I think it got buffed, saw some play and was okay. Anyway, what people are really talking about with Shaman though are Wailing Vapor and Primal Dungeoneer. Wailing Vapor is just your typical sort of Mana Worm or Tunnel Trog style card that just grows bigger in attack when you do something, and it's playing elementals, which they've recently given Shaman some support for, including with this card, their Dungeoneer card. You draw a spell, and if it's a nature spell, sorry, Perpetual Flame, you also draw an elemental from your deck. So it's essentially, if you build your deck right, a 3-mana 2/3 draw 2 cards, which is incredibly good. Unfortunately, I just don't think, even with some of the buffs, I don't really think that Elemental Shaman can do it. Now, people are overhyping this Wailing Vapor card, calling it one of the best cards, if not the best card in the set, and yes, it's good, and yes, cards like this in history have been problematic and have been nerfed. But the big difference between this and, say, Mana Worm for Mage is that mages run just all sorts of spells and are constantly casting spells, so you can get a super, super big Mana Worm pretty easily, no matter when you play it in a game. Elementals, though, if you break that chain by even just 1, like it feels really bad to play Elementals off curve, and just you're not even guaranteed. Like, you got to build your deck with some other stuff. You can't just make a 30 Elemental deck. That's just not feasible. So I think the ceiling for Wailing Vapor is a little lower than people are making it out to be. I'm not saying it's a terrible card. I'm not saying it's even a bad card. I think it's a great card for Shaman, because Shaman desperately needs anything that's good right now. I just think it's a little overrated from what I've seen in the community. And, well, nobody brought Shaman to Grandmasters this week, so. And they had a week to play with these cards, so that should say something. Next up, we have Warlock, which has some really interesting and one terrifying card. The terrifying card being Stealer of Souls. Any card that you draw while this is out has its cost change from mana to health. So I've already seen people running wild with this in Wild, of all places, of course. It makes the Mechathune combo easier. It makes Pain Warlock even better. It makes this achievement really easy of spending 100 health on Warlock cards. There's other ways to do that. There's Blood Bloom in Wilds. There's like a Murloc card that makes your next Murloc cost health. I wonder if... Oh no, that's I wonder if any of the priest slash warlock cards that you can draw from Gahoon the Blood God and then pay health for count towards this. Maybe I'll have to do some science. But Stealer of Souls, yikes. In Wild, if you can just build up a big hand, play this, and then Plot Twist in the same turn, you just got a full hand of stuff that you can just play for health. It sounds really scary, and the little bit I've seen, I haven't played any Wild since the set went live, and I've heard that it's just a mess over there right now with Warlock stuff. But the other two cards I like a lot. Unstable Shadow Blast is a 2-mana deal 6 to a minion spell, reminiscent of the Hunter one that does piercing damage, basically. When you kill a minion, any excess damage goes to your opponent's face. This one, likewise, any excess damage goes to your face. It's a really, really cheap removal tool. Warlock's got a ton of that right now, but I really like the design of this one, especially the call to the other card. The Hunter card. I think it's really neat. I think it's good design. It's a good card too. And also, I just really love this design because Mortal Coil was a card that I just like stuck into like every Warlock deck for a while when I first started playing. But this is basically Mortal Coil, except rather than drawing you a card, it summons a 2/2 Adventurer if you can kill a minion with this. So I really, really like the design of this. Fortunately, like I said, the 2/2 Adventurers, well, at that point, it's kind of like a better Blood to Ichor, which was a card that Warrior got, but the minion had to survive the damage, and you would summon a 2/2 slime instead of, wanting to kill the minion like you want to do. So this is very, very much better than Blood to Ichor. But unfortunately, I don't think it sees play, just given the amount of Warlock removal that there is, and decks that would want to remove minions efficiently are probably more of the control variant that have more of a focus on the higher end stuff in their deck. So unfortunately, I just don't think it's the right meta for Final Gasp, but dang it, I love the design of this card. And our final class is Warrior, which got a weapon and 2 minions, one of which is legendary. The weapon is just an upgraded Light's Sorrow, which is just 1 mana 1/4 weapon that whenever you attack, buff a minion in your hand by 1 attack. It's kind of boring. I think there's just better things to do in general. Unfortunately, I don't think this weapon sees much play, but it does curve nicely if you can play it on turn 1 to turn 2 Man-at-Arms. That is a 2 mana 2/3 that gets +1/+1 if you're holding a weapon when you summon it. Once again, I think it's really just good with this Whetstone Hatchet, and I don't think it's really, really good other than that. But where the spice really is for Warrior is Kresh, Lord of Turtling. Now, I mentioned that nobody brought Shaman to Grandmasters this weekend. A lot of people brought Control Warrior with Kresh in there. This card looks really sweet. It's a 6 mana 3/9 with Frenzy, gain 8 armor, and a Death Rattle, equip a 2/5 weapon. And that goes along with the achievement they got, attack 60 times with this weapon. So if you get all your swings in every time, it'll take you 12 games, or 6 if you're resummoning this guy with Sourfang. This card seems really cool. I have always liked Control Warrior. I always disliked how expensive of a deck it is. But it's an archetype I like a lot, and I think this is a really, really sweet card for it. This was one of the surefire legendaries that when I saw it, I said, like, okay, that's one. That's one for the list of cards that make me want to buy this set. And I'm excited to play around with it. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to craft a lot of legendaries if I want to play Control Warrior, which is not fun. I have the dust, but I'm not looking forward to it. But I kind of am looking forward to it at the same time. It's a paradox. And then to round things out, we got 5 neutral cards, 2 legendaries, and 3 commons. And now, finally, we have an achievement that pays off with the Adventurer card, so I guess I'll talk about Devouring Ectoplasm as well. It's just a 3 mana 3/2 with Death Rattle, summon a random adventurer. And the achievement here is to summon 100 total adventurers, which you can see from my 1 playing of Party Up in my duels run. I got 5 ticks towards it. I don't think this one will be too bad, especially if you're farming for that other Paladin one. I think that's the way to go for this achievement. I think you'll probably pop this most of the time before you pop the Paladin one. But we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I'm excited to dig into that. I'll talk about the other 2 commons first. I really like the design of Selfless Sidekick. I just don't think it's really, really good right now. It's just a 7 mana 6/6. Equip a random weapon from your deck. So you can actually tutor for weapons in some decks that really want that kind of stuff, like your Druids in Wild looking for Twig of the World Tree, or any kind of... you probably don't want to equip Kingsbane with this, but you know, it's a really cool card. Like, it not only draws you the card, but plays it for you. It's a weapon, so it's something proactive. I think it's a really neat design. It's just expensive. I wouldn't want it to be cheap because it's a really good effect. But I can't really think of any decks or weapons off the top of my head that you would super spring for this to put in your deck. You'd really want it to be a more expensive weapon, and they just don't make too many like really high cost weapons. Yes, there's things like Gore Howl or Arcanite Reaper, but those aren't... I don't really think those are good enough to run this card, which is unfortunate because, like I said, I really like the design. Probably should have talked about Meeting Stone first, but it's kind of like Evil Totem. It's a 1 mana 0/2. Kind of wish it was a totem. That would be kind of cool. But it just gives you an adventure in your hand at the end of your turn as long as it's alive. It's very easy to remove. It can't strike back. It is a 0-cost minion, like I was talking about, that there aren't many of when I was talking about Against All Odds. Unfortunately, I don't think this sees any play. It's just too easy to remove, and you'll probably just get one adventure off of this most of the time, which is unfortunate. But now, the two big boys here. I'll talk about Archdruid Neralex first. It's essentially a mini Ysera. It's a 3 mana 3/3 that is dormant for 2 turns. It gives you one of the Ysera Dream cards at the end of each turn that it's dormant. You could combo this with Maiev. Very overrated card from a couple sets ago. I thought Maiev was going to be great. So did everybody. She turned out not to be, but if you can Maiev this, you get essentially just 2 more Dream cards. The Dream cards tend to be really good. And some people had been bringing this to Grandmasters that I saw earlier today in some of the deck lists. So some people like this card. I just think with the random nature of the Dream cards, not knowing which one you're going to get, New Ysera is great because you just get one of each. You know what you're going to get. It's late game, so you know that you can play them all the next turn. I think there's one of them you might be able to play the same turn as Ysera. But with this, just like old Ysera stopped seeing play quite a long time ago. But the fact that this is a much cheaper minion, maybe it is worth running. It's certainly interesting. The Dream cards are overall really good. So this might be worth running just for some cheap access to those. It's a cool enough card. It's not offensive. It's not bad. And like I said, it's being played in Grandmasters as we speak. So that's good enough for it. But my absolute favorite card, best boy of the set, Mutanus the Devourer, who has an achievement to go along with him. He's a 7-cost Murloc that eats a minion from your opponent's hand. Dirty Rat is one of my favorite cards of all time. I love the effect of just pulling something out of your opponent's hand. It's skill testing to know when to do it. Hoping that you have the removal to pull whatever, knowing when to play it. It's one of my favorite cards of all time. I'm so glad we get something similar to it. I've heard horror stories of people's Cthuns getting eaten, people's Ticketuses getting eaten. Now, those are obviously very high rolls, but I love this card. The achievement is to eat multiple minions, 20 in fact, that have bigger stats than 4/4, which is what Mutanus is. Did I mention that when he eats these cards, he gains their stats? So you're putting down potentially a rather large boy on turn 7 if you can hit something good. I'm super stoked to just throw this into my Highlander Priest deck in Wild. I cannot wait to eat some Reno Jacksons or some Shadows of Spawn of Shadows. I absolutely cannot wait to play this card every chance I get. I'm gonna Windmill Slam it every time on turn 7, as long as I have it in hand. I love this boy. This was another one that I saw and I said, like, okay, you know, I say I want to look for 2 legendaries that are good or playable or fun. This was one of the first ones revealed, and I immediately said, yes, I'm buying this set, even if this is the only good legendary. So there you go. That is all the cards in this mini set. I rambled for a long time. And that's all the achievements too. So I'm gonna start picking away at some of these, but if there's any that stood out to you that you'd like to see me cover in a future video, please feel free to leave those in a comment below. If you enjoyed me rambling about these cards, feel free to hit the subscribe button or leave a like on the video. I would appreciate both. And hey, if you want to be where I'm at, I think I'm actually going to be streaming some Hearthstone kind of soon. So follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at HeyTallman at both places, and I think that's going to do it for me. So until next time, thank you for watching, have a great day, and may the cards you need the most, hopefully Mutanus, never be at the bottom of your deck.